started. So we're all super excited to have you here and talk about the resources that we have for you. I am going to ask, so I am Anne McGuire. I'm the Assistant Director for Education and Outreach for the USCCB Secretariat of Pro-Life Activities. And Kat, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Kat Talalas. I'm the Assistant Director for Pro-Life Communications here at the Secretariat for Pro-Life Activities. With everything in the pro-life movement, we begin and end with prayer. So let's start. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dearest Saint Joseph, at the word of an angel, you lovingly took Mary into your home. As God's humble servant, you guided the Holy Family on the road to Bethlehem, welcomed Jesus as your own son in the shelter of a manger, and fled far from your homeland for the safety of both mother and child. We praise God that as their faithful protector, you never hesitated to sacrifice for those entrusted to you. May your example inspire us also to welcome, cherish, and safeguard God's most precious gift of human life. Help us to faithfully commit ourselves to the service and defense of human life, especially where it is vulnerable or threatened. Obtain for us the grace to do the will of God in all things. Amen. Well, thank you so much for praying with me and with us, and thank you so much for being here. We're so glad that so many of you were able to come. November is a time when a lot of us start preparing for all the things that happen in the pro-life world in January. So it's a big month, January is, from the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, of course, to the National Day of Prayer for the Protection of Unborn Children, which is the same day, to obviously the March for Life, which is often a huge event at parishes bringing people, or even in the states doing their own thing, not necessarily bringing people to the march, but doing things in their state. So it's a really popular time. These days in January are really popularly known as days when we really commemorate the victims of abortion, and are a really great time to bring people in your parish to advocate for the respect and protection of human life, and also to evangelize your parish and the wider community about the value of every human life. So this webinar is for all of those who want to help their parish to promote pro-life events during the month of January, to prepare for the March for Life, or to do their own thing at the parish, to do things in their diocese and at the state level. And you're going to see that our materials are going to be really customizable, that we're going to be sharing with you to be used for whatever you feel like is really needed in your community and what your parish is able to do. We're going to walk you through the website in this webinar and through the action guide, and explain how these tools can really help you and your parish prepare for the January events and for pro-life events throughout the year as well. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I will give you to Anne McGuire, who will walk you through all of these great resources.
So the National Prayer Vigil for Life is going to be January 20th through the 21st. It won't be overnight, and there are still some changes in place because of the ongoing pandemic. There is limited attendance. I believe it's about 3,000 people, and registration is required. But it is also going to be live streamed on the Basilica's website and on EWTN. We're going to be updating this website I have listed at the bottom of the slide, usccb.org/National Prayer Events for Life. All right. And then we're going to be talking about two more significant things. The first is the January action guide. So for those of you who have attended our webinars before on our action guides, it's going to be extremely familiar and simple. We use the same format. For those of you who are new, I'm excited to introduce you to our materials and show you what they are, and hopefully give you some ideas of how they can be used. And the idea is really that we wanted to provide a resource that people could basically just plug and play, even if they have no prior volunteer experience in the parish, that if you have on your heart this desire to share the gospel of life, to integrate it into your parish's life, and meet people where they are, which is, coming to the liturgies, often existing programming. We do offer opportunities or ideas for additional engagement, but the idea is really whoever you are, it just gives you something that you can kind of run with that's already pre-made, and we'll go through all the different components of that. But I also want to stress that this is in no way, there's a lot of resources that we're going to be going through, and it's in no way to say that you need to do everything. If you have one thing that you want to ask your pastor for permission to do, like putting an announcement in the bulletin about the 9 Days for Life novena, that's great. If you want to ask your pastor to make a little announcement from the pulpit, or to put a pro-life intercession in the prayers of the faithful at Mass on the weekend prior to January 22nd, and maybe January 22nd itself, like that is great. Like, praise God. So this is really just to give you a lot of resources and ideas for you to pick and choose from. So please don't feel overwhelmed. That is not our goal. And we just want you to feel equipped and empowered and to go forth in the Lord's peace. So I cannot stress that enough. So the parish action guides, we have one for each of these occasions. So we're going to be talking specifically about January. On the website listed at the bottom of the slide, respectlife.org/action-guides, we have the other action guides as well, and webinars from these other action guides. And they stay pretty much the same from year to year. So if you're interested in looking ahead, you can certainly look at the other webinars that we have recorded in the last year, because they are essentially going to be the same information going forward. So we also have the Annunciation of the Lord, the Sunday of Divine Mercy, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and of course, Respect Life Month. So each of the parish action guides has a series of components that remain the same pretty much from guide to guide. So we have the introduction, which just sets the context and explains what it is and why this occasion is important, what the connections are to the sanctity of human life. Then we go into some simple steps. So there's 5 for each guide, where we just suggest a few simple things that you can do in your parish if you can't get into the full guide and that kind of thing. And then we have a sample timeline, which is a lot more expansive, and it specifically suggests, okay, starting in mid-November, take a look at the resources for January. Okay, next step, contact your pastor, next step, and so on and so forth. But again, do whatever works for you, take whatever's helpful, disregard whatever is not, change anything you need to. This is just to try to help make your lives a little bit easier. We have also bulletin and pulpit announcements, which are pre-written, and all you have to do is fill in the date from year to year. And we have sample intercessions for the prayer of the faithful. We have homily helps that the clergy at your parishes could use, and we have a sample activity. And so we're going to be going into each of those in a bit more depth, but just to kind of give you that overall scope of things before we dive in. And so I'm actually going to be spending the bulk of the time just sharing our website with all of these materials. All right, so back here. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is the Action Guides website. So if you go to respectlife.org/action-guides, you can see that we have each of these buttons directs down the page to the one that for each button. So you click Anniversary of Roe v. Wade, and it takes you down to the first one. And here there's just a little description from the general instruction of the Roman Missal, which explains that January 22nd is a special day of prayer and penance for the legal protection of unborn children, which of course is also the anniversary of Roe versus Wade. And then we will be posting the recording to this webinar that we are doing right now. We'll be posting it here on this website. And then we also have this action guide. So going through all those different components that I just showed you. And then within the action guide, there are sometimes supplementary resources mentioned, and you can find those linked here. So just to show you, we're going to take a look at the English web page. So if you were to click this button, you would go over to this web page here, which is just the resource library on the USCCB website. And it has the full guide in a PDF format in Microsoft Word, if you want to copy and paste things, into other formats, such as, into your bulletin and that sort of thing. And then each specific component of the guide also is available here as its own PDF file with its own web link. So for instance, if you just wanted to share the introduction file with someone, you could copy and paste this web URL at the top in your browser bar, and then they're not overwhelmed by the whole guide. And then it also directs them to where they can get more materials if they're interested. So this is something great to send, for instance, to your priest if you want, or your pastor if you want to say, hey, I've got some ideas I'd like to discuss with you. This kind of gives a general overview. And but for now, I'd like to show you and just go through all of those components. So as I said, the first component is the introduction. So let me just zoom in on my screen a little bit here. So we have the excerpt from the General Instruction of the Roman Missal explaining the significance of January 22nd. And then we go into 9 Days for Life, which is our annual pro-life novena that happens in January. This year, it is from January 19th through the 27th. And I'll be talking a bit more about that as we go forward. So then moving on to the simple steps. They are a little bit different from guide to guide. This year in January, you see, just kind of the emphasis again that these are adaptable for your parish, your school, your ministry, or even for use at home in your family. And so the different suggestions here are to spread the word. So in 9 Days for Life, the novena, we have a lot of promotional materials for that. So we've got graphics and flyers and announcements and all sorts of things, which I'll be showing you. And, next thing, invite others to participate. So announce it. So don't just, drop something in text. If you can kick it up that next level, ask that it be announced from the pulpit. But you can, certainly think creatively about other ways to spread the word as well. The third simple step would be to preach on respect for human life on January 22nd and also the weekend prior for those who won't be able to attend Mass on the 22nd itself, which is, I believe, I'm blanking on what day that will be in 2022. But anyway, for those who aren't able to make it. Pray for the protection of human life during the prayer of the faithful, and you'll see the sample intercessions, and then share what you're doing, because we know that social media can be extremely helpful in letting your friends know what you're doing and inviting them to also participate and join. And so if you use the hashtag 9 Days for Life, that also helps us so that we can see what other people are doing and help amplify it where possible. So please do use that hashtag so that we can see all the great things that are happening around the country. Next, we have our sample timeline. So beginning in mid-November, so right now, you would begin by visiting respectlife.org/action-guides, which is that website I showed you earlier. See this website right here at the top. And we recommend that you request an appointment with your pastor for later in this month, perhaps after Thanksgiving, to discuss the day of prayer for the legal protection of unborn children and 9 Days for Life, so that you can share with him what you have learned today, what you have taken a look at and decided that you would propose to him as something that your parish might be able to do. We recommend starting by first asking whether they have any plans. So if you're not already aware of what's happening or what might have already been considered, be sure to go in with that attitude of listening and service. So rather than coming in and saying, well, we want to do this and that and the other thing, like that's great, but make sure that you're aware first of whatever they've already been considering. So then in early December, you could meet with your pastor, remind him of the observance and let him know about the novena if he's unfamiliar with it. And then this is an opportunity in your conversation with him, rather than overwhelming him with just an email, you can take that moment of personal encounter to share the different resources that are available. And the most important thing is ask what you can do to help. So ask his permission and ask what you can do to help, because a lot of priests are extremely busy but not necessarily resistant. We understand certainly some are more hesitant for various reasons, but for those, there are also priests who would love to do more and frankly just are stretched really thin and would appreciate somebody sort of taking the lead under his guidance, of course. So then in mid-December, the recommendation is complete. I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but it just goes, it shows you how, in mid-December, the next step would be bulletin submissions, first week of January, touch base again, and so on and so forth. And then here are the sample bulletin announcements. And like I said, they're already written for you. It makes it very easy. All you have to do is insert the dates from year to year. And we did it like this rather than including the dates for the upcoming novena here. We left that blank so that this guide can stay the same from year to year. So if you see something that you really want to do this year, but you just don't have the bandwidth, make a note of it and come back next year and maybe you can do it then. Because the idea is really that these guides can be used perennially. Okay, so then we also have some pulpit announcements, some sample intercessions here for the legal protection of unborn children, etc. And this section also includes some ideas. So in addition to using them during the prayers of the faithful, you could print them in the bulletin. You could include them at a local rally. You could feature them in email newsletters, share them on social media, pray during your personal or family prayer times. So we try to give you, in addition to kind of the main use, we try to provide also ideas for other ways that you can use the same thing and just get a little bit more use out of it. And then we have the homily helps. So the Sunday before the day of prayer for the legal protection of unborn children, it's pretty simple, just some main points. And then we also have some options for January 22nd, there can be a lot of different options of readings. And so those are hyperlinked here. So, but these would be, a possible combination of readings. And so then the homily notes are then based on that combination. So talking about, Genesis and Cain and Abel and that, all that. I think we're talking about Cain and Abel here. I'm sorry. As I said, I'm not feeling super great. So I apologize if I'm confusing this. No, here it is, Cain. Okay, good. We're good. And then moving on, we have a sample activity so it's the order for the blessing of pro-life pilgrims. And it could be pilgrims going to the March for Life. It could be pilgrims doing something locally, going to a local church. But this has some suggested directions. So find out where there's a group of pilgrims based on what you discover, decide whether you want to organize a group, and then it just walks you through that whole process and gives you the links on the actual order of blessing itself. And then some ideas for if you want to take that even a step farther, what, things you can do. You could have a sharing session after the pilgrimage and all that. So I know I went through that really quickly. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A feature. Please put them in there rather than in the chat so they don't get lost. Again, make sure they go into the Q&A feature so that we can address them at the end of the presentation. Now, this is just to show you really briefly the choices of readings. So what you would do is the celebrant may use the readings of the day, any readings from the Mass for giving thanks to God for the gift of human life, or any readings from the Mass for peace and justice. And so what you would do is you would select one reading from the Old Testament, one reading from the New Testament, responsorial psalm. So it's a little bit like a choose your own adventure kind of thing. So those are all laid out for you, and those are linked in the action guide. Now, I mentioned 9 Days for Life a lot. So what is that? For those who are unfamiliar, it is our annual novena. It started back around for the 40th anniversary of Roe v. Wade and was really well received. So we've continued doing it since then. And individuals can sign up to pray this novena for the protection of human life. We focus on abortion specifically during this novena because of the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. We certainly recognize that there are other pro-life issues, for example, assisted suicide, and those are important. But we focus on abortion during the month of January because that is the anniversary of the Supreme Court case, along with Casey, that made abortion legal throughout the United States, essentially during all 9 months of pregnancy. So that is why we are focusing on abortion specifically in this novena and in the action guide. And during the novena itself, there are a lot of different intentions, though, that are related. So we also do try to make it something that is a positive experience. So recognizing the seriousness and the gravity and the tragedy. And at the same time, praying for things like expectant mothers, that they would be accompanied and walked with and would receive the support in welcoming their children, not only during their pregnancy, but also in the early years of their children's lives. So you can take a look. The full novena can be found here in English and Spanish. And pretty much all of these resources are available, or at least will be made available in English and Spanish. We have a few more things to update on the website, but it is ready for you to look at. If you're seeing that something is missing, I would say give it to the end of the week. And if you still don't see it by next week, feel free to shoot us an email at prolife@usccb.org. So the novena, each day's intention is accompanied by a short reflection and suggested actions, and sometimes by like a did you know. So for instance, on January 22nd, there's a little factoid. Hey, did you know today is the day of prayer for the legal protection of unborn children? So I'll just show you day one to give you a sense for the format of the novena itself. For each intention, we have a graphic that you can share on social media. So you can share it actually directly from this page if that's easy for you. Or easiest. We also have them that you can download and share them that way. But we do recommend that you share it from our social media accounts if you can. Of course, like I said, you can use these buttons, but if you're able to just share it, we'll be posting them daily, January 19th through the 27th. And the reason for that is that it actually, because of the way the algorithms work, more people will end up seeing it if the same post from our account is shared by lots of people versus the same number of people uploading the graphic and sharing it themselves. So if you're a parish or a diocesan staff or volunteer, please do consider sharing directly from our account on Facebook or Twitter. And Kat, perhaps you can put the links in the chat to those accounts as I continue forward. So we have the intention, just really simple prayers. Our Father, 3 Hail Marys, glory be. Short little reflection on the intention, and then suggested acts of reparation. So people can choose one. So we try to do one suggestion that is sacrifice oriented. So taking a break from television and movies. One act of reparation that is prayer focused. And then each day, if somebody wants to do something totally different, that's obviously fine too. So making sure that people know there is that freedom and flexibility. And then one step further. So if you want to learn a little bit more, actually each of the days has that. So if you want to learn a little bit more about whatever the topic is that day, you can do that in the one step further. So there's the educational component as well. So if we go back to the main page for this, and then go to the leader resources page, which is the same as that one. We have the novena, where you can either access it through the web pages like I just showed you, or if you click on your language that you prefer, the novena is here in printable daily versions or text only as a Word document, or you can just print out the whole novena all at once. And then, And then we scroll down the page, we have an image gallery where we have lots of graphics for you to use. So you can use these in your bulletins, on your websites, newsletters, wherever you prefer. And you can download whichever ones you want from this button here. And these are the options, the different dimensions that are available. We also have the intention graphics. These would be great to include in the bulletin. Again, if you're going to be sharing them on social media, we ask that you do that from our social media accounts directly so that more people can see it. And then we have these promotional flyers that you can use, stick them in the bulletin, email them out, put them in the back of your church, however you want to do it. And then logos. All right. So then continuing down the Leaders Toolkit, we've got, like I showed you, the flyers. So in a variety of dimensions and both in English and Spanish. So we've got the full 8.5 by 11 page, and then we have smaller versions, to save paper. We've got the sample announcements on this page where we did plug in the dates for you. And then we also have a press kit. So this is good for, doesn't have to be just press. It could be, your own bulletin. Especially would be helpful for Catholic media and diocesan communications. In that press kit, there will be a media advisory coming out in January. So closer to the event. And then we'll have radio spots that you could use if any of you are podcasters or on local radio, maybe local Catholic radio. We have this press photo from Catholic News Service, who's been very generous in providing this to us. So if you have any, for example, diocesan newspapers who want to write about 9 Days for Life or the Day of Prayer for the Legal Protection of Unborn Children or something along those lines, they can use that press photo there as long as it's credited as indicated. And then again, just the logos and then the Word document with the novena intentions and then directing them back to the leaders page. So this would be something that you could, if you wanted to get your diocesan communications or parish communications person to know about 9 Days for Life, you could send them just this page rather than overwhelming them with 15 different links. And then this links back to the January Action Guide, which we went through, and the Day of Prayer for the Legal Protection of Unborn Children, which is just a little bit of a description about that day specifically, and a few select related links. So the choices of readings, and then the other things that we've just gone through. So I think that pretty much wraps us up. So if we've got about 20 minutes for Q&A. Please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A feature again, and I can show you where that is. Oops. Pardon me, I forgot to share my screen. So one moment and I will show you where that is again. Okay, so, just to wrap everything up and tie it with a bow. So the next steps would be to review the available resources, decide what you would like to ask permission from your pastor to implement, and connect with him and your parish staff to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And just remember, progress, not perfection. Any little thing that you can do is progress, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. So, prayerfully discern and move forward in peace and in joy and in hope that we are serving the Lord. Again, when we close out the webinar, please do fill out your survey just so that we can better learn to serve you in the future. So now is the time for questions. Again, just to remind you, you can find it by hovering over the bottom of your screen, using either the little dots to open that pop-up menu or the question mark button at the bottom of the screen. And please do send them to all panelists so that both Kat and I can see them and the right person can respond. And now we are time for Q&A. I do just want to answer one that I just saw come in, which is, I think the person was asking whether this webinar was recorded and will it be shared. Yes, this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared. And in that email, we will also be providing you with all of the links that we went through today. So don't feel like you have to scramble for those. So you'll have both the recording and the links. Okay, so with that, Kat, do you see any questions that you can get started with?
I do. I see that someone, let me scroll a little bit.
All right, great. I'm going to take a quick moment away and we'll be right back.
Okay. Just going to take all your questions. Feel free to keep sending in questions. Someone asked, are the materials downloadable for free? Yes, the materials are downloadable for free. The only resources you might pay for are if you're looking for things like prayer cards or like physical materials, like if you're looking for a poster for the Respect Life program or anything in the action guides that would involve like a paper or print resource, although sometimes even our prayer cards, depending on the initiative, might be free. So look into it, depending on what it is. But all of our digital resources, everything on the website, you can just, that's downloadable, you can just use. So please go ahead and do that. See what else we have.
And just a reminder, please do put your questions in the Q&A feature so that we make sure that we don't miss them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sorry, my computer is like freezing up for some reason.
Okay.
So someone has asked us, what is the best way to get a lot of people in the parish to pray the novena? I think the main thing is just to make people do what you can, make people aware of it, right? If there's a way that you can, print it out, leave copies to the church. If there are ways to engage your pastor or to ask him maybe to speak about it in the homily, the action guides have a ton of information that is really there to be given to your pastor. I know, again, it's not, sometimes pastors can be a little skittish or squeamish about pro-life sometimes, but there can often be creative ways of leaving copies, leaving copies around. If you're involved with a ministry, get the ministry to pray it. Maybe if you can talk to the parish secretary, get them to put a link in the parish. If there's an email that your parish usually sends out, or flock note or something like that, you can ask whether or not they could include a link. And the really important thing too is to get the emails yourself and to pray it yourself and to forward it to your family, to your friends. So I think those are all different ways you can get your parish involved to pray the novena. And someone has asked whether they can freely use all of the 9 days novena, like repost it, reprint it, copy paste it. The Laura has asked this. Yeah, any issue with any portion of the 9 Days for Life novena being copied and used in a bulletin, or any copyright issues?
Yeah, you can definitely include it, and that's why we do provide it as a Word document. I would just say, please make sure that you include the copyright information and the attribution that is included for each day of the novena, because we are citing other sources. So both so that people know where the novena is coming from, and don't, this would be one thing where I would stress, please don't change the novena. So you're welcome to reproduce it as is. You could do like 1 day of it, for example, or quote from it or excerpt from it, but just don't change it. And then just make sure that you're citing it with attribution, with the copyright credit that is included. And that's all laid out in the Word document. So there's day 1, all the text, and then at the bottom of day 1, there's the copyright information. So as long as you're including that, I think you should be fine. And somebody else was asking, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. I forgot to include a really critical piece here about the 9 Days for Life novena. We really want to stress local participation and engagement.
Yes.
That said, people can sign up for the novena itself to pray it on their own, and they can get it daily by email or by text message in either English or Spanish. So those graphics to advertise it are for the purpose of encouraging people to sign up to then pray along with it. And again, they can receive the daily emails and text messages in English or Spanish. So the emails go out early morning around 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and the text messages are sent out at noon, because we're not able to filter by region of the country. So we don't want to be sending text messages super early, waking people up. There's also legal restrictions as well about the timing that you can send things.
Gloria mentioned a few, I mean, and yes, so key is knowing that people can sign up for 9 Days for Life and get those emails and get those, those regular reminders. Gloria's also mentioned that they, in their parish, have hard copies available. They also have the pages on the parish website and on the Facebook page. So that's all great, Gloria. Thank you for doing that. That's wonderful.
Kat, we have somebody here who is wanting a little bit further clarification on what I was getting at by saying the graphics are better shared directly from our account versus uploading them. Could you clarify what I was saying?
Social media. Okay.
Yeah.
So the major problem with Facebook and Twitter are not problem, but the way that they work are through algorithms. And algorithms tend to make things be spread exponentially if they're popular. The algorithms are very smart though. And so when you have, say, 3 people sharing the same, like downloading a picture and posting it, and only a few people see it, then Facebook makes sure that even fewer people will see it, or Twitter makes sure that even fewer people will see it. Whereas if all those 3 people shared from the same one person, then hundreds of people could see it. So when you have people all sharing it, downloading it themselves and sharing it themselves, as opposed to sharing from a page, you end up getting much diminished returns on people being able to see it because the way the algorithms are set up to prioritize things that have a lot of shares. So it's not that we don't want to provide the graphics or make it available for you to send. It's that what's going to happen is you might only get 3 or 4 people looking at it that morning, and then even fewer people throughout the day will see it. Whereas if you were to share it from ours, hundreds or even hundreds of thousands of people could see it, ideally. So that's why we do it that way.
Thanks so much, Kat. Somebody or a couple of people were asking for the main URLs. I've just put those in the chat. So the first one is the page where we have all the action guide materials, and then the second is the page for 9 Days for Life. And we are in the process of, we still need to update or create the sign up page because the software that we were using has been retired by the company. So we have to create a new sign up page. So I'm going to put this link in the chat, which is you're going to be your best friend, but please just know that if you go to it right now, it will not make any sense because we have to create the page. So the main page, if you want to keep this one in mind in the future, is 9daysforlife.com with the number 9. And I put that in the chat. Again, I know it doesn't make sense right now because we have to update that page, and we'll be doing that either today or tomorrow. And that's where you can send people to sign up for the novena. Somebody is asking, are we going to be able to post the novena by day to our parish website, Facebook, and Instagram? Kat, do you want to speak to that? You're muted. You're muted.
Yes. So one great way of doing that is keeping an eye on and we will be posting. What we usually do is we schedule the post ahead of time, and usually it's like 7 a.m. or something like that in the morning on our Facebook and Twitter page. So the best way for your parish to be able to post the novena would be to just share our post. And again, that will lead to more people seeing it because of the way the algorithms work. So you want to share from our page when we post it. Usually it's around 7 a.m. in the morning. We schedule the novena, but we'll be letting you know if that time were to change. But that's usually what we do, and that we find that's the best way for parishes to share that information on their own.
Yeah, and Kat, it's USCCB Respect Life is the Facebook page?
Yeah, so I put those in the chat box. We have USCCB Respect Life is our Facebook page, and then USCCB Pro Life is the tag for our Twitter page. But I put those links both in the chat. So, and honestly, if you Google USCCB Respect Life, both pages will come up. But you should see those links right in the chat box.
Yeah, and we can certainly talk to our social media director for the main USCCB accounts as well about posting on Instagram specifically. But yeah, we can be sure to keep you all updated so you know where to share from. And somebody is asking Will they be able to sign up as soon as 9daysforlife.com site is updated? Yes. So definitely by the end of the week, but I would say probably by tomorrow or so, people will be able to sign up to get the novena in English or Spanish by either email or text message.
Mm-hmm. William has brought up an interesting point and an important one, which is that so many pastors are reluctant to speak about abortion or to use their suggested readings, to use the homily helps, to use the intercessions. And can't the USCCB please direct them to do so? They might listen. I want to just say, William, I share your frustration. I grew up in the Northeast. I'm a Jersey girl. And I think I've heard one homily on abortion my entire time living in New Jersey, and it was actually at a Spanish mass. It was a Spanish homily. And so I share that, that concern. What a lot of people might not realize is the USCCB does not really have the authority to tell bishops or pastors what to do. So we can offer information to bishops. We can encourage them and ask them to do things, but and we send out regular communications to all the bishops asking them to use these resources to instruct their pastors to do these readings. But we cannot, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, because of the hierarchy of the church, cannot really compel bishops to ask their pastors to do this. But what I will assure you is that we do ask them. We ask them. And whether they take us up on it is really up to them. We have bishops.
Yeah, and I do just want to tag on to that. I'm not sure if it was the same comment you're responding to, Kat, but somebody was mentioning, is it possible to recommend that dioceses and parishes use suggested readings, homily, and petitions the weekend before the 22nd? And we actually do have a shorter set of suggested homily notes in the action guide that is specifically for the weekend prior to the 22nd, recognizing that many people will not necessarily hear those things on the 22nd itself. So we do have homily notes specifically for that, and some of the announcements are written with suggested dates in mind. So, hey, use these or consider using option, suggested for use, on these 3 weekends. So we definitely do take that into account.
Rick has said that he volunteers for a pregnancy center. Are there separate resources for them, or are these available to them? Please use these resources to your pregnancy center, or allow your pregnancy center to use them. They are not only necessarily for parishes. We're happy to have anyone use these resources if they find them helpful.
Pat, I'm seeing a question here that I think would be a perfect sort of little shout out to Walking with Moms in Need. The question is, how could we as a parish get others in the neighborhood to realize how important life is in our world?
Oh, that's a great question. Unfortunately, we are living in a culture that denies the humanity of the child in the womb, that places adults' interests and worries over the lives of children. That's a very sad thing. But there's hope, because I think at the bottom of their hearts, most people deeply want to be compassionate. They don't want to see women in distress. They don't want to see babies hurt. Even if they're not necessarily pro-life or Catholic or even believers, there are ways to reach people. And one way that we found really effective to be able to reach people in the church who might not consider themselves pro-life and hopefully bring them around is through our Walking with Moms in Need initiative, which is designed to serve.
Sorry, Kat, I'm just going to interject real quick. Could you speak up just a little bit louder?
Sure, thank you. Yes, so Walking with Moms in Need is our parish-based initiative to get the entire parish to get involved with pregnancy care ministry. And you can go to www.walkingwithmoms.com. We'll put that link in the chat. But any parish can start a Walking with Moms in Need chapter. You don't have to stop what you're doing for pregnancy care to participate in Walking with Moms in Need. In fact, it's really is an umbrella that, like, the whole church has to take in every kind of pregnancy care ministry under one Catholic church, home. And it really is a great opportunity to reach out to people who might not consider themselves pro-life and to see the real needs of women in distress, who are facing challenging pregnancies, and how many of them, turn to abortion because they don't know that anyone cares about them. They don't know that there's anything there for them. So Walking with Moms would be found to be a great way to get people who might not be inclined to think about abortion to show their compassion to women in challenging pregnancies and to help them welcome their babies into the world. So we find that that's a really great kind of wedge to kind of get in places where normally pro-life ministry isn't welcomed or understood. It's a kind of a great starting point. Great question.
Let's see. Somebody else was asking about the wrap-up steps. Review, decide, and number 3 was connect with your pastor and parish staff. So review with the materials that are available, discern and pray about and decide what you want to bring to the pastor to let him know about and seek his guidance on, and then connect with him. Just have a conversation together about moving forward. And then somebody else was asking, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your question, but basically that there is how do you make that first step approaching the pastor about doing more or starting up a pro-life ministry or so I would say, I think it just starts with having that first conversation. And I don't have anything really specific other than just to say to approach that conversation with that spirit of humility and recognizing his role as the caretaker and shepherd of the parish. And to ask him, what you can do to assist him in his priestly function, particularly with regards to the gospel of life. And then to let him know that there are resources available that you are willing to run with.
Yeah.
So to let him know that it's not just you saying like you should be doing X, Y, and Z, but that you're really putting yourself at the service of the Lord in this way. And for him to guide you in that.
Just building on what Anne said, I think it's really crucial. Pastors are busy. And so if they feel criticized or that you're asking them to do more, they might shy away. But if you're clear, number one, that you want to take this on and you want to help guide, you obviously under his direction, but to guide and to do the work to kind of get this started. I think there's often more openness. And also if you can share, sometimes too, people are sometimes worried about things that might seem fringy or political. So if you can be clear that you just want to use the pastoral resources from the USCCB for Parish Respect Life chapters, sometimes that like authority or legitimacy makes them feel a little bit better that this isn't something kind of random, but this is something that, hundreds of thousands of parishes do. And these are, approved resources by the bishops. So that could help as well.
Yeah. And I definitely want to respect everyone's time. And I recognize that we're just a little past 3 at this point. But I think I do just want to make one more point, or ask Kat to make one more point, because she's our office spokesperson and is more articulate than I am. But so forgive me for delaying the conclusion of this webinar. If you need to go, we will take no offense. That said, Kat, for those pastors who are more hesitant about talking about abortion because they see it as perhaps divisive, maybe you can speak to how Walking with Moms in Need, and I'm sorry if you already said this, but just speak to how that can be a real unifying project.
Yeah, sure. So we find that Walking with Moms in Need, again, it's a great wedge to kind of get into the church, because if you notice, nothing about Walking with Moms in Need even mentions abortion. It's not necessarily even a pro-life ministry, although of course its impact is tremendous on the lives and health of moms and their babies. But we find that Walking with Moms in Need is a way to, because who doesn't support helping moms and their kids and young families? I mean, it seems like every pastor, every person, every Catholic person, that's a safe, it's a comfortable feeling that we have of, of course I want to help this group of people. And so we have everything you need at walkingwithmoms.com. Who are, we have all these resources at walkingwithmoms.com that are just literally ready for you to just get out there and use them. We even have sample emails to send to your pastor. We have things to talk about at your first meeting with your pastor. We have literally everything you need in our guide at walkingwithmoms.com for you to get this started. And I think it's a great way to start the conversation at the parish about, wow, there are women in our pews who are struggling, in our community who are struggling. How can we help them when they're parenting young children and when they're facing another pregnancy? I find that's a really great way to start. It's a very non-scary way to start. Another, person has mentioned, which is a great thing from Jan, a lot of people who are there, a lot of pastors know that there are women who've had abortion in their pews. And I think a lot of them are therefore hesitant to talk about abortion in strong terms for some, because they don't want to, again, not be compassionate, which is actually, commendable that they want to be compassionate. So another great way to get people involved in abortion or talking about abortion or thinking about abortion is abortion healing ministry. And we have Project Rachel here with the church. And that's can sometimes be a good way to have pastors thinking about this topic, about the people who are really hurting from abortion. It can sometimes be a way for them to not avoid this literally vital issue.
Yeah, and I would just add, as far as abortion healing ministry, to make sure that you connect with your diocese before doing anything with that ministry. It's extremely important that it comes from and under the bishop's guidance. And so make sure that you connect with your diocese, and we can include a link in the email, in the follow-up email, for the directory of diocesan Respect Life directors. And so you would just, find the person on the list for your diocese and then connect with them before moving forward with any of that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Anne. But just, for Walking with Moms in Need, that's something that basically any parish can do.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily have to go through a whole process to be able to start Walking with Moms. You can literally just go to the website and download the action guide and sign up.
Yeah, it is still good, though, to connect with your diocesan director, and
for sure,
if you can, because they also want to know who in the parishes is doing pro-life work, and
absolutely,
they may be able to provide you with support that would otherwise, you wouldn't have. So, okay, well, I think I'm so sorry. I know that there are more questions, but we just are not able to get to them all. Thank you all very much for joining. We will be sending a follow-up email by the end of the week with a recording of this webinar, the links that we have talked about. If we didn't cover something that you really need to ask us, please feel free to email us, prolife@usccb.org. There's no hyphen, it's all one word, prolife@usccb.org. Thank you all so much. Kat, do you want to close us out with a quick prayer?
Yes, let's close with the glory be. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Thank you. God bless you all.
God bless you all.